Okay, welcome back to the Caribou Media Outdoors podcast. With me tonight is S.G Holmes. Stuart Holmes, how are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. Thanks for jumping on. I appreciate it. You had I was trying to think back to the first time I interacted with you, and I actually found it. It was one of your pictures. Obviously, you're an incredible photographer. How long have you been into photography?
Man, quite a long time. So my stepfather was a photographer, or he's an artist, I guess, art teacher. And he taught photography in high school. And when I was young, I always thought, him being able to freeze time with his camera and, develop. So like back then it was film.
Right.
He would develop in the bathroom or whatever. And, I always thought that was really cool. So I don't know, it's probably like fifth or sixth grade or something like that. And he invited me to like the photography club with all these high school kids. So like I thought I was like the man getting invited, right? And I tagged along. We took some photos, developed it, and I was like hooked, from an early age.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, you're phenomenal. Any training outside of that, like any courses or anything?
No, never had any like formal training or anything like that. I mean, I think, he kind of taught like composition was always a big thing, and lighting, like use of light, which
Right.
I mean, in essence, that's photography, right?
Yeah.
But so I guess like basic fundamentals, I kind of like picked up from him. And then, I mean, I think like with anybody, you like see things you like and you try to like emulate that a little bit, or you see something here, you try to emulate, and then eventually you kind of like come into your own style. And I think for a lot of people that maybe getting into it or are into it, and hadn't found themselves or whatever, you just kind of develop your style as you go, and your style continues to change and evolve and all that. So
Yep, absolutely. So when it comes to, I always like to start off asking people when it comes to archery, go back in time a little bit. When did you first pick up a bow, and how did that kind of transition you into bow hunting?
yeah, well, I picked up a bow when I was very young, probably 6 or 7 years old. I mean, my father was a hunter and, shot bows back then. I mean, it was like an old fiberglass bear, something from the 70s that was his, laying around the garage. And he had a bunch of, cedar arrows, aluminum arrows, like just hodgepodge of stuff. And he would make a target out of a cardboard box, draw a dot on it, fill it in with newspaper, and I would just spend hours out, shooting that.
Yeah.
So that was the start of it. And then, I think I was, I don't know, 10 or 11 or something. We got an old bear compound, and this is all. So I'm left-handed. That's another thing. If people look at me, yeah, right. I'm lefty. That's right. You told me that in. But so I shot right-handed for years because there wasn't a left-handed bow, especially back then.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until probably end of middle school, early high school, I like cut yards, cut grass and all that, saved my money up, and went and bought the first left-handed bow. And that is, I had to transition and like relearn everything, essentially the mechanics and all that. And that's around the time that I got into bow hunting. I was able obviously to pull enough poundage and all that stuff by, you know, I guess that was middle school. So yeah, and I've been bow hunting ever since. And it's just kind of evolved into something that's always there. I always can count on it, and I can pick up my bow anytime I want and not think about anything else. So
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Yeah, I started when I was 7 on a family trip. We were at like a sports recreation place, and they had archery every day after lunch, kind of thing. And it was just fun thing for the kids to do. Most of the arrows were missing fletchings, right? But that's kind of
Yeah.
how I got into it. And then
Yeah.
as I got older, I'd follow my mom up to her friend's farm. They'd want to go drink coffee and chat. So her friend went into this broom closet and pulled out a fiberglass. It was like a green fiberglass bow. It'd be like $30, right?
Yeah.
And she handed me 3 arrows, and she's like, "There's a hay bale out there for the horses. Get out of here!" Right? So,
That's awesome.
and then from there, I transitioned to high school. We had an archery team, and we did Olympic recurves. And again, not the finest equipment, but it was a good experience. And I remember they brought a coach in from like outside of the school, and he was obsessed. You had to kiss the string. He kept saying, "Kiss the string, kiss the string," and everybody's like, "This guy's crazy." Right? And if you miss the target, you had to do 10 push-ups, right? And then
Oh wow, that's tough training.
and then go get your arrows. And we went to like one tournament, and I remember I got kicked out of the first round, but it was fun. Like and then I got away from it, and one of my friends who was on the archery team with me, he went to Bass Pro and bought a compound, and I had no idea what that meant, like what it was, how it worked. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And he brought his over, and same thing. He was right-handed, I was left-handed, or right-handed but left eye dominant, so I shoot left. And I was missing the target with his bow by like 3 feet, sending all his brand new aluminum arrows into the cornfield.
Yeah.
So that just kind of lit the fire for me, and then I just fell into it. And when we moved up here in the country, everybody's a hunter up here, so I just naturally eased into it, and not turning back now. Right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was like bit by the bug pretty early. So there was, I was pretty fortunate where I grew up. It was an outdoor store, a local one. And the bottom floor was all like, firearms. Upstairs was an indoor archery range, archery shop. And I mean, in the summertime, my parents would just drop me off with like $5 and I would go shoot, indoor stuff. And when I say indoor, it wasn't like I was, shooting for score or anything like that. I would just go up there and shoot whatever they had. And for $5, I could shoot all day. And eventually, I met some really knowledgeable, like awesome archers, and I got free training, coaching from,
amazing.
A couple of guys. But there was an old timer in there that, I mean, I guess he saw some potential or something. I don't know, but he would spend, hours with me on grip, on, back tension, I guess, and, releasing the arrow. And then eventually that led into, serving a string, tying in a peep. And I could do, basic work on a bow, even at that age, to kind of like get by making arrows. So that was really impressionable, especially at an early age. That, I think with archery, there's shooting a bow, and a lot of guys probably just do that. But I think like actually like learning, why an arrow does what it does, when a bow's out of tune, why is it out of tune? What's it doing to the arrow? How do you correct that? I think like as people dig into that stuff and learn more, it makes you an even better archer, because then you're thinking about, okay, if I'm gripping or torquing a certain way, that could have an effect on the tune, etc. So that was pretty cool for me to learn early on, and I've just kind of like taken that and ran with it as well.
Yeah, I remember I picked up my first Easton Axis set of Easton Axis arrows, and I remember seeing videos of people fletching their own. I'm like, oh, I'm never gonna do that. Like, these are fine, right? Like, the pre-fletched ones are fine. And it's like, it's amazing. The more you get into it, the more you dive deeper and deeper. Now I've got a press, and I'll always fletch my own arrows, right? Like, it's just like a natural kind of progression as you get more and more obsessed with it. So you were shooting PSE for a while. Now you're into the Hoyts. What are you shooting, the RX9 or have you shot the AX2 at all, or
so the two? Yeah, so right, this past season, or I guess current season. I've still got my RX-8. I shot that.
Okay.
And I mean, so if I go back, so yes, I shot PSC for a short period of time, but like prior to that, I tried Matthews for a few years as well.
Okay.
But most of my time in archery, going back to what I just told you at that archery shop, has been a Hoyt for probably 20 years or more.
Yeah.
So, and it's good, I think, to just shoot one thing or whatever. If you like it, you like it. But I think it's also good to see what else is out there. So that's kind of, the last few years, I shot, I've shot all kind of bows. And that's the cool thing these days. There's really not a bad bow out there. They're all just, you split hairs on a lot of stuff. So it's kind of like you have to find what speaks to you or what you shoot accurately or what you like. And, there's a couple PSCs I shoot very, very accurately. I get along with them really well. And Hoyt, going back to Hoyt, was like, it felt like home. It's like we never stopped hanging out together type of thing. So
yeah, you picked up where you left off, right?
and I mean, that RX-8 is absolutely fire. Draw cycle, super smooth. I mean, everybody knows all that you see. So I have an RX-9 on order, waiting to get that. Hopefully, get that in February or sometime. So we'll get that all tuned up and ready to rock.
Nice. Yeah, so when I Googled bow hunting for the very first time, two things happened. Tim Burnett from Solo Hunter popped up and Cameron Haynes, right? So I binge watched every episode of Solo Hunter. I wanted a Prime because I'm stuck on the that's what I'm seeing on TV. I go into the local shop. They don't sell Prime. They got Hoyt, Matthews, PSC. And of course, every year then the marketing comes out. You're like, oh, I want a Hoyt. And then a week later, Matthews drops their videos and you're like, shit, maybe I want a Matthews. And it just kind of goes down that, right? And so I went in and bought a 2019 Hoyt Helix Ultra. That was my first one.
Yeah.
I love that thing. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, you kind of want to try different things. And a Prime dealer opened up near me. I bought a Prime, shot that for a couple of years. This year I shot the Elite. So it's kind of like, it's nice to get kind of an over, a little bit of feeling about what's out there. And then I was at TAC, the Pennsylvania TAC, ran into Evan Williams on the practice range.
Yep.
Talked to him for a bit, and then we walked over to the Hoyt booth, and they're like, "Oh, you want to shoot?" And I was like, "Oh, you probably don't," because I'm so used to never finding a left-handed bow in a store or anything.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh yeah, we got left-handed ones here, no problem." So they grabbed, the Alpha X and I guess the RX-8 at the time.
Yep.
Set them all up. Like, they were more than happy to get you going, right? Took some shots with each of them, and I couldn't tell. First of all, when I drew back, I was like, oh man, this is nothing like what I came from.
Right.
With my, they've made so many improvements, little improvements along the way, but from 2019 to obviously to 2024, huge improvements. And I couldn't believe how smooth it was. And I also could barely tell the difference between jumping between the aluminum and the carbon. I was like, I don't know. Like, if I was blindfolded, I wouldn't be able to tell you which one's which here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so the first carbon bow I owned was the PSC and Levitate, and shot the Mach 30 as well, Mach 34 when I was doing stuff with PSC. And like carbon, I mean, I think it's a preference thing, but like I just love carbon bows. So I guess it's now in terms of performance and all that other stuff, I mean, it like I said, it's a preference thing. You're not, gaining a performance thing, I think, too much. But yeah, the RX-8 absolutely fell in love with that thing. And you can ask Joe next time you talk to him. We're in South Dakota, so going to the Hoyt cam on the 8. we get up there, and first day you want to shoot your bow, test it out, make sure everything's on. And I'm pulling it back. I'm like, dude, I think something happened on the plane. This doesn't, like, I feel like maybe the cable's stretched or something. I don't know. This doesn't feel right. Doesn't feel right. And I'm like, somebody's got to have a bow scale or something. And I'm shooting. I'm like, well, it's still, it's a little low, but like could be the difference in humidity or altitude or whatever. Because I'm at sea level, type of stuff, and which should be shooting high. But anyway, I was freaking out that something had happened to the bow, and of course we went and we both tagged out and all that stuff. Get home, and no, it's on. It's just that cam is. I swore I was pulling, a lot less than 72 pounds. It's crazy.
It's crazy. It's just like, and I think that's why the numbers keep going up and up and up. Now it's 80. Soon 80 is going to be the new 70. And I remember when I pulled back the 70-pound prime I had, it felt easier to pull back than the 65-pound bow I had before that. So it's like, all these little improvements. And now with the they made so many improvements to the cam now for 2025, like 2 different back wall settings. Like if you want it even harder, like it's crazy. It's crazy how they do it. And I said to the guy at the booth, I was like, this is incredible. This is nothing like the 2019 I had. And he's like, yeah, it's all about the cam. He goes, there's Kevin over there. He's the one that did it. You can go talk to him. Like the engineer was there. Like I couldn't believe it. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It's an awesome experience.
I shot the just 9, and typically with a cam that you get that's a very smooth or easy draw cycle, you're going to give up some performance. And so I was immediately, like, when I put in the order, for 70 pounds, I'm like, should I have gone to 80? And I was kind of like worried, and I got it, and I was getting some pretty good speed out of that cam at, I'd twist up the cables a bit, get, a few more pounds out of it, 72 pounds. I'm a 29-inch draw. So not the longest draw out there, but not the shortest. So kind of just like right in the middle. And, on the 9 platform, I had no issues with speed or anything like that. I think if I'd have done the Ultra, which is what Joe shoots,
right.
I'd have probably gone with 80 pounds like he did, gain some more speed.
Yeah. And then kept seeing, I've only ever shot Easton arrows.
Yep.
So I started with the Axis, shot those for 5 years. The Sonics came out, fell madly in love with the Sonics.
That's a cool arrow, man. That's
so good. Oh, so good. And then I went to buy more, sold out everywhere. So I got the 6.5s because they were available. So I picked those up. Then I was going to go back to the Sonics because they started to come back in stock. And then I saw you and Joe shooting these experimental ones. And I was like, what's going on over there? I got to wait now. Damn it. And, and then I thought, what could they do to the lineup? What's going to go under that sticker? And I thought, well, they haven't done anything to the 5mm in a while. And sure enough, those 5.0s look absolutely spectacular.
Man, it's the arrow. I mean, I think everybody's been waiting on, definitely me. Now I love the Axis. I shot the Axis for years, and I think the Axis was probably, the originals were probably some of my first carbon arrows. No, I take that back. I shot an ACC, which is kind of the predecessor of like a Pro Comp or something like that, but just bigger diameter. That was my first carbon arrow. Then came the Axis, and shot those forever. And I did play around with some different shafts, trying to, lower arrow weight, still get, some decent weight out on the front, shoot a little stiffer spine, that type of thing. And, ended up from there kind of going to the 4mm long range Axis, which was awesome because it had I could get a lower weight arrow at the spine that I wanted, at the front weight that I wanted. good speeds out of it and all that. And, you know, when they called us about the experimental, which is now the 5.0, to field test them, we took those we got those a few weeks before South Dakota. And I was like, yes, this is going to be hot. So I can tell you now, I love a 5mm, you know, like I said, the 4mm, I like all that stuff, but components and some of those types of things, you know, can be a little tricky, especially if you want to run lighted nocks or whatever else. So to go back to a hit insert, lighter GPI, sign me up. I don't know if I'll shoot anything else for a while.
So were you running the inserts and the collar, or were you doing the half outs
For the 4mm?
For the 5.0s?
For 5.0s, I do hit inserts. I do brass hit inserts. I run 50 grains of brass up front. I have the collars, but I didn't run them this past season. You know, I was getting the arrow weight that I wanted to without it. You know, so
where do you try to land with your arrow weight?
So I like to be like 450-ish, right? Okay. You know, so now I don't shy away from, if I went down to 430, I don't think I've not had any issues at 430. You know, I've shot as high as, well, when I shot Axis early on, I mean, you're at 500 plus pretty quick because that GPI is so heavy. Then you run a brass insert and all that, you get to 500 plus pretty darn quick.
Yeah, especially with the lighted knock on there. That's what does it for me every time. Bumps me up.
Yeah, and I really like lighted knocks. I mean, where they're legal, right? But game, you know, recovering your animal, I think, you know, the arrow is kind of the first place I like to start. And if I can find that arrow, I at least, you know, can get a better idea what kind of blood I've got. So,
yeah. Do you have a favorite lighted knock?
Man, I really like the halos. You know, I've shot those for 2 years now, or 2 seasons now. And there you go. So it's the plastic is nice and hard and stiff. I don't find, you know, I think I ran some nocturnals and stuff like that before, and it's got, you know, softer plastic. I noticed some tuning issues or funky arrow flight, and I'm like, I tuned my bow. I know my bow's good.
That's not right.
Right. So, you know, those halos are, I think it's probably the best lighted knock out there that I've tried.
I shot nocturnals for like 5 or 6 years, and that was always my issue, was the plastic being a little soft.
Yeah.
And as soon as the halos come out, and I heard people saying that exact same thing, you know, it's a harder plastic. It's actually, if I just did a video on it that's going to come out soon, but it feels more like your standard Easton knock, material wise, hardness wise, than the nocturnals do. I did notice that the nocturnals were slightly brighter, but at the end of the day, it's still a lighted knock. And the other features that go along with it, like the material, as well as the ease of turning it on and off, or turning it off with the string, like that's it. I'm gonna stick with those for a while.
Definitely. And knock fit also, you know, I'm finicky on knock fit, especially for tunes. You know, I like how those halos fit, at least on my serving and string setup. So, yeah.
And you made a big jump this year picking up a trad bow?
Yep. Well, that's funny. So I've always had a trad bow or a recurve or something.
Okay.
You know, I'll go through a spell where, like, you know, not that I get bored with a compound. I will always be a compound shooter. Don't get me wrong. I think I will. I love that, right? But deep down in me, I mean, there's nothing more pure than, you know, a longbow or recurve or just a traditional setup. But I would pick it up. I get frustrated. I've missed, I don't know, probably a dozen deer, you know, not really putting the time in, or thinking I was dialed in and whatnot. I don't know. So this year I was like, you know what? I'm going to take the rest of my season. So the rest of my season is here in Alabama, and I'm going to only hunt with my trad bow. I have a goal to take something with a traditional setup. So
Nice.
got it all together, got it tuned up. Had a lot of help from like Aaron Snyder was giving me some tips on, tuning, arrow setup and stuff like that. And that, I think, progressed the learning curve quite a bit on the tune, because before I was just kind of guessing, and I really spent time on paper tuning and bare shaft tuning. So the bow tune made a lot of difference. And then, I mean, hundreds, if not thousands of arrows, probably in the span of a few weeks. I mean, I got obsessed, dude. Like whatever I do, I
dive deep.
I go deep, and
right to the bottom of the pool.
So I had that thing ready to go for a few weeks, and then went out and took my first, whitetail, which was a doe, which is like probably like that doe meant more to me than, a lot of bucks that I've killed with a compound, because it was just a goal I've had for, I don't know, a decade or more. So
yeah, I just watched your video, and the fact that your son watched the arrow go through, that's awesome. From his vantage point, that was wicked.
Dude, he was pumped. And we still had probably, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes of shooting light. He's texting me. He's like, I just want to get up and go get the doe. I want to look at the arrow.
It's right there. I can see it. It's like 50 yards away.
He was like, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. And to impress an 11-year-old in this day and age with whatever.
Yeah.
He was pumped.
My son's 18 now, and I asked him earlier on, I was like, do you ever want to come out and like just sit in the ground blind with me or whatever? And he's like, yeah, but I don't think I'll be able to sit still. Like I'll always have to, I'll always want to do something, but yeah, that's awesome. And I like hover over purchasing a Hoyt Satori all the time. Because I will eventually, like you, I'll never stop shooting the compound, but going back to that recurve is something I'm definitely going to do at some point.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it, because it's I've talked to Dave and some other folks. That, I mean, there is a romanticism about the trad kind of setup, and you just feel like totally different walking in the woods with sticking the string and some arrows, and that's it. And it's such a simple like kind of setup and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It is a totally different feeling, and I think everybody at least needs to try it.
Yeah, it's so stripped down. Like Dave was like, "Oh, when I saw him with that, I messaged him. I'm so proud of you."
Man, he was pumped. And I think that's super cool. Like, I think in the past, some of the trad community has kind of, looked down on compound shooters, and compound shooters look down on maybe somebody uses a crossbow or a rifle or whatever else. And I think that stuff really is like got to stop. Because I think everybody should use what does it for them, right? And if you want to do it and take the plunge into it, awesome. But it doesn't make anyone, any more or less of an archer or bow hunter or hunter. I think it's awesome if you want to take the dip and do it. But I think we just need to support each other and whatever we're into at the moment.
Yeah, we're all out there to do the same thing. We're our own worst enemy. It's like when I've talked about, we're an awesome group, but we're never organized when we get attacked by outside groups because we're so busy fighting each other with our small bickering instead of being able to stand back and stand together, right? So
100%.
Yeah, that's something we need to work. It's like when the grizzly bear hunt in BC was getting challenged and it was going to get banned. I remember hearing talk about it on the radio, or I heard about it on a podcast, and people are all fired up about it. I'm like, that's never gonna happen. Well, sure enough, it did. So,
Yeah.
everybody kind of sat back and thought the same thing, and then now you can't hunt grizzly bears anymore. And yeah, it's definitely something that we need to work on. That's for sure.
Definitely.
So, when it comes to broadheads for compound and traditional, I'm assuming you're using different setup or the same?
Yes, but so yeah, for compound, I mean, pretty much exclusively using Sevrs. This season, we also got to test out the 1.5 hybrids. So along that, in South Dakota on that mule deer hunt, we had I was shooting the hybrids. I think Joe may have he loves the 1.75. I don't think you ever get that dude off of him. And I get it. That 1.75 is just it's excellent. However, so I had the experimentals with the 1.5 hybrid, and that was a nasty combination. Like, those hybrids are sick. Definitely check them out if you hadn't. But yeah, I use Sevrs. Most of the time in the past, I would use a 2.0 for deer, whitetail, mule deer, whatever else. For elk, I was planning on using 1.5s, but the 1.75s came out. They sent me some to try for elk hunting. Shot an elk with a 1.75, passed through. I was like, okay, and I can get along with that. So
no kidding.
So yeah, any of the Sevrs, I mean, I've had just awesome luck with them. And then for the trad setup, I've got a couple different fixed heads. So you mean iron wheels? I like the solids. Those are awesome. I actually shot that doe with a VPA. Just a 2-blade, not a single bevel, so double bevel. I think they were 125 grain head. But Sevr reached out a week or two ago and were like, hey,
what are you doing?
No, not really. They get it. I mean, everybody, I think they get it, but they're like, hey, would you be willing to try some 1.5s? We'll send you the 125 grain head for a 1.5. Would you be willing to test that with your trad setup, on some whitetail down here? So I just received some of those. I'm going to actually give those a try. And I know there's probably going to be people out there that are going to
screaming right now.
Oh, they're squirming in their seats, probably hate mail for it, but I'm going to try it.
Yep.
But from some of the information they have, there is low poundage bows, compound bows primarily, that use those successfly.
Absolutely.
In the setup. So I'm gonna give it a shot.
Makes sense.
See how it does. So
makes sense why it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got the whole lineup for a couple of videos that I was doing, and I shot them into ballistics gel, and my God, just like crazy, just the devastation. Those 1.75s, I was talking to Joe about it, and he's like, and a few people commented when I put the video up, if they ever put bleeders on the 1.75, watch out, right?
Yeah.
I remember mentioning that to Casey from Sevr, and he's like,
yeah,
anything's possible. Not saying anything, right?
Yeah. Well, so the guides. So when I shot my mule deer, it was a pretty hard quartering away shot that I took. And I'm looking at basically opposite side leg, opposite shoulder, thinking about and I like that shot. I like a quartering away where I can bury the blade basically in a shoulder blade. If I can get it to stick and they run, it's doing all kinds of damage, right? So we get the mule deer back to the outfitters like Skin and Shed, and they're skinning it up, and we get into basically that front shoulder, and it looked like, I mean, one of the guides was like, dude, it looks like you shot that thing with a 300 Win Mag. I mean, it was incredibly devastating.
Just
what
hamburger.
that. So I ended up giving the rest of my 1.5 hybrids to somebody in camp for them to try. But
Nice.
I think that definitely sold some folks on that hybrid.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Joe was saying that too. He's like, you should have seen the devastation that thing did.
It
It's
was
like
unreal.
just turned it all into hamburger. It was just a mess. It did exactly what you wanted it to do, right? So
It
that's
went.
awesome.
I mean, that mule deer went maybe 30 yards and toppled over. It was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Is there any gear that you've come across, whether new or old, that you're always going to take out with you?
Ooh,
Oh,
that is a good question. Well,
just want to take a quick break to talk to you about a couple of things that I've been using that I think might benefit you. One is this Numa Outdoors gear. This is in their Kaza OV pattern, which is great whitetail pattern when you're up in a tree in the fall and late season. They also have a Kaza pattern which has more green in it, which is good for spring through to the fall. Numa has given me a code to give to you of Caribou Media 20, which will save you 20% at checkout. Another product here that I've been using for years now is the Bulldog targets. This is a Canadian made target. They're made in Manitoba. They have a lifetime warranty. I've used that warranty twice now on a couple of my larger targets that are outside. It's very simple, very easy. These targets are 2-finger removal every single time, which is incredible. Field point only target. Bulldog's been gracious enough to give me a 20% discount code to give to you at checkout. Use code BD20-Caribou-Media. That'll save you 20% on these awesome targets. Now back to the show.
wow, you're making me dig down.
You can think about it if we want to go to something else.
You make me dig down deep. I mean, that's really tough for me though, like because I'm always playing with something. And
I know,
I mean,
me too.
Joe just like rolls his eyes sometimes when I'm like, all right, dude, I'm messing with something I probably shouldn't be messing with. But like, I'm in terms of, like bow setup or anything like that, that stuff's kind of like ever evolving with whatever's new. And, if a company wants me to try something or something come out, that stuff kind of changes quite a bit. I'd say in terms of like packs or whatever, kind of a similar thing. I'm always trying different stuff for different purposes. But actually, now I can think of one thing that has not changed in probably 20 years, and that is my grunt call.
Oh, okay.
Whitetail. So I don't even know if they make this call anymore, but it was it was called like a mad growler. I think it was like a Drury type of call, and I just get some really like sick tones out of it. And Joe, even we hunted together, film a bit for each other and stuff like that. And he's like, dude, that grunt call sounds gnarly. What is that? And I was trying to find it, and there's something that looks like it. It's still a growler, but I don't know. Some other company has it, and it looks a little different. But
it won't be the same.
That thing has called in many a deer. So that's a never leave home without it type of thing. And I wish I could say there's like a lucky knife or skinning knife, but like
yeah, that's right.
Like Joe was like, dude, how many knives do you need? And I'm like, I don't know. I like trying things. So there's a box. You want to see them all?
What are you using for a knife right now?
Right now, I really like the Montana Knife Company. That Kifaru knife. I can't. What is
Jackstone?
Yeah, the Jackstone. I love the blade shape. So it's got like that kind of. I don't have it. It's in my pack outside, but it's got that really severe kind of like drop point on it. So like skinning wise, it doesn't poke anything and stays sharp. I love the shape of it. That's kind of like hard for me right now to not carry.
And it's a little bit thicker than like the Speed Goat or some of the other ones. So
Yeah.
not going to use it to pry anything, but it's kind of nice to know that if you did get a little aggressive with it, it's not going to.
Yeah, you could probably like split wood with that thing. It's bulletproof.
Yeah,
but I love the shape. That's what I've probably cleaned most of my stuff lately with.
Nice. And more primitive stuff. Do you have a favorite piece that you're wearing?
Man, probably the most born primitive piece of gear I have is a quiver fleece.
Mm,
So that fleece layer I find to be very, very versatile. As far as tops, I mean, bottoms, you're pretty much in early season anything. I love their Frontier lights. I'll wear those quite a bit, and then in the winter or when it gets cooler, the heavy Frontier pants are pretty awesome. They just did an upgrade too, with changed a little bit of the material, make it a little bit more durable, and then it has like these elastic adjustment things on the waistband, which are freaking
I
money
saw
because
I saw those.
your weight's going to fluctuate in season.
Yeah.
I'm not like hitting the gym and eating right all the time, so I typically end up losing a lot of weight into season or beginning to end of season.
Hmm.
So I just tighten those jokers up and I'm good.
Yeah. As soon as the first Frontier pants came out, and I was like, Aaron Snyder had his hand in that. Those might be the best pants that ever get made, just because
There's
all his experience and the amount of time he spends outside putting that all into pants. So, is there a significant Is there a pretty big difference between the lights and the regular pair that you would like if you wore the standard pair in the spring or something, you would definitely get overheat in them, or is it?
Yeah, they're pretty warm.
Yeah.
I wear. I mean, most of the time, I'm wearing just those as soon as probably mid October, late October through most of the rest of the year. I can wear those or throw a layer underneath. And they do have side vents actually, and that's one thing they changed on the lights that is probably the best change on the lights that I've seen. Is it's a lightweight pant, but the past versions didn't have like the leg zip on the side to vent.
So important.
And I've hunted New Mexico and like 100-degree temperatures for pronghorn. We did the mule deer, which got into the 90s into a lot of days, and those side vents, be able to open those up are a big deal. And even like if you're in the woods and you've got to hike any period of time or whatever else, being able to open those vents and just dump some heat is
Huge.
I heat up. I get hot pretty easy. So both of those pants have that, and I like that feature.
Yeah, that's a vital feature for hunting pants. Absolutely. The last thing you want is to be walking into your stand or setting it, or you get up to the top to set your saddle or get in your stand or whatever, and you're already sweating.
Yeah, I mean, typically I get dressed at the bottom of a tree or the tree after I cool down. I cannot stand being hot.
Yeah, I'm the same. So, photography. What cameras are you? Do you use the same cameras that you would stay at home and take like product shots with? Do you use those same ones in the field, or do you have something different? Do you have a different setup?
Yeah, so I'm primarily running two different camera bodies. So I've been on Sony for quite a while. So right now I'm using the A7R5 for photography. Now that is very high megapixel, huge file sizes. Do I advise somebody go buy an A7R5 just to be, just to take photos? Absolutely not. You don't need that many megapixels. There's reasons I like that many megapixels, because I wouldn't use that just for a product shoot.
Right.
What I'm using that for outside of this stuff, I love doing landscape photography. I love, doing some street stuff. And I also, for lifestyle, if I'm cropping an image down considerably or want to crop an image down, having a lot of megapixels enables you to do that without losing too much image quality.
Right.
So that's why I like that. It's a heavy hitter, does a lot of stuff. And, that's kind of my photo banger. For the video side of things, I've got a Sony FX3. And here's the funny thing is a lot of the photos that you see on my Instagram page are, at least in the last like several months, are taken with that FX3, which is a 12 megapixel camera. So it just goes to show, like, you don't have to have some magnificent, huge megapixel sensor size and all this other stuff. You can really do a lot with not what you need, or what you think you need. And I mean, also I get DMs a lot like, hey, what would you recommend for this thing right here?
Yeah.
So this is a 15 Pro. It can take raw images, again, high megapixels if you need it, but even in raw 12, it takes awesome photos. You can get some really cool stuff on an iPhone. That's where I would recommend anybody start.
Absolutely. Like, I started with a Nikon. It was like a package deal you get at Costco. It came with 2 lenses and a bag. It was like, I don't know, $1,200 for the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I used that for a few years, and then sadly it tumbled off the tripod. One of the tripod legs decided to collapse on me, and it landed, of course, on the screen that was flipped out and snapped the screen off. So I went to Canon, which I love for the colors, amazing. And I got the R7, so it's the last crop sensor before you go into the full frame for the R6.
Yep.
And it's been amazing. Really good for video. I wanted to see if I liked the platform before I go higher up, but really, like, it's everything that I need. And then
go ahead. Sorry.
As the temperature changed and we got blizzard, snow, rain, I was like, I don't know if I want to take that out in the tree. So I literally used my phone and DJI Osmo camera.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is going to be fine too. Like, it's all going to work out. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, again, there can be like a lot of overkill with what, you think you need or whatever you're sold on. I shot crop sensors for a long time before I went to a full frame. So I shot DSLR, which is a different type of thing. I went from that to a crop sensor, shot crop sensor for, I don't know, probably 5, 6, 7 years. My full frame mirrorless was, a Sony A7 IV, I think. But I would get great images out of a crop sensor setup. I think it was a Sony A6000 or something, like one of their very first ones. I used that for a while. Great cameras.
And there's so much information out there. Like, if you're trying to get into it, like, I went to so many different photography YouTube pages, and some of the people will show the image and then actually in the corner give you the settings they used, and you can, like, in manual, you can use that as like a starting point for what you're doing and then adjust as you go. I remember trying to take a picture of a full moon out on my back deck. I must have taken 300 shots, but one of them was amazing.
But that's it. I mean, in photography, it is a numbers game. You take, even for, if I do stuff for a company or stuff for my own page, it may take, now, obviously there's some things I can nail pretty quick, but you might take 100 photos, and out of 100 photos, you might have 5 or 10 that are all right, and then you may have one banger, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's a numbers thing, figuring things out, even like what settings you run. I know a lot of people, say, oh, the only way to shoot is in manual. I hardly ever shoot in manual. I shoot with aperture priority, especially if I'm outdoors.
Yep.
And I watch I watch my shutter speed to make sure it doesn't run too low, because then you get, blurry images. But when you're like running and gunning and doing stuff quick and having to, sunlight's changing constantly or clouds are happening a lot. I only want to think about a few things, and that's, my aperture. And that's the main focus. And if I need to bump up ISO or something like that, I'll mess with that. But for the most part, I don't fool with the manual thing too much, unless I have to. There's certain situations you kind of have to steady, light's not changing. You're in a steady environment, nothing wrong with shooting manual. You probably won't have to chase your tail too much. So anyway.
Yeah, I started doing the aperture priority. I like that. It's like you're saying, a lot less to be concerned about.
Yeah. No,
you going to any TAC events this year?
Yeah, we're trying to figure out the TAC schedule. So Joe and I always kind of like coordinate on that. We did, Big Sky one year. We did Pennsylvania last year.
Yep.
We might try Pennsylvania again, but we've not really settled on when, where, what, how yet. So, but
yeah,
I think Pennsylvania is easy. I can fly up there to his place. He's a couple hours drive away. We can also do some work up on his farm in Ohio and stuff like that. So kind of a 2-for-1 deal.
Yeah.
Do Penn. How about you?
Yeah, we're going back to Pennsylvania. We ran into you guys there with, oh my God, like it's kind of, you're spoiled when you go down to something like that when you live up here and we don't have access to a lot of the stuff that you can just pick up on the table down there in the vendor village.
Yeah.
Like we got down there on the Thursday, we're walking around. I'm like, guys, I don't even have to shoot a course. I know that we're coming back here every year. And we're bringing more money, right? Like we already we spend so much money down there.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, Pennsylvania is a good one too, because I'd say as far as like East Coast, that's probably the biggest in terms of vendors. So you do really get to see a lot, meet different people and stuff like that. It's a good one.
Yeah, John Dudley's standing right there. You can go talk to him if you want.
Oh, man, he's at like all of them though.
I know he goes to all of them, but it's just crazy that he's just like, we had some starstruck moments when we were there, but yeah, he's crazy. We went up and talked to him, and I had the camera, and he was like, "What's the camera for?" And because there was a group of us there, I said, "Can we just get a picture with you?" He's like, "Hey, come on, everybody, come in." He said, "What's the camera for?" And I'm like, "Oh, I just, I have a YouTube channel. I just do like some review videos and stuff. It's called Caribou Media Outdoors." He's like, "Oh, cool." And then I had it recording because I'd just been filming a bunch of stuff, so I just told his guy, like, just hold the camera up, like I'll take a screenshot of it or whatever.
Yeah.
And Dudley launches into this whole introduction for the video. Like
that's awesome.
It was crazy. I was like,
and the crazy thing is he will probably remember you when you see him next year. Like the guy has a talent with people and names and that type of stuff. No, he's a pretty cool dude. So
cool. Yeah. Do you have time to tell us one of your hunting stories from this year?
Yeah,
you've had a few, whether it's the South Dakota one with Joe or your whitetail or the whitetail with your son, whatever you want.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, let me ask you this. Did Joe already tell you the South Dakota story?
He told his side of the South Dakota story.
Oh, his side. Okay.
Well, he's talked a little bit about yours, but he didn't get into too much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can hit that one quick then if you guys hit that one. But yeah, so we got down basically to day 5, which was the last day. We ended up stalking in and got set up on his buck about middle of the day, and they probably sat there for an hour. I'm like up on a knoll back, downwind of them, like kind of can see, kind of can't. And I hear basically an arrow hit something. You hear like a little bit of a bow and then an arrow hit something. I'm like, that's either really good or really bad. And, so I'm looking over there and like, come on over. So he had a pass through, and I think what it did is the arrow hit like a big washout. So his pass through, I think he hit that thing in about 50 yards, pass through, and all that. So we recovered his muley, cleaned or took it back to the outfitter. And then we're like, all right, afternoon, what are we going to do? So the day prior to that, I had a really nice stalk into some very good muleys down on a river bottom. And we're like, all right, so for the afternoon, we're going to go do that. We kind of saw where they bedded in the morning. And that's basically how you hunt them. You're glassing in the day, see where after they get done feeding, you watch where they bed, and you go for them. So we go to the river bottom. We're making a stalk. Wind changes on us. Once the wind changes, they're out. And this is, I can't remember the exact time, but I think we had a little over an hour left before shooting lights over. So when they blew out, the guide's like, all right, let's sit here and kind of regroup. So I'm sitting there, and Joe's like looking at my face, and he's like, oh man, like he could see, like, I'm gonna eat tag soup is what was
You're
in
getting deflated here.
Yeah. So we're sitting there, and the guy goes, hey, I got an idea. Let's run back to this other place, which was a farm behind, probably 20 minutes, 30 minutes away. Let's go run over there real quick, try to glass something and put something together. So we, haul back over there, and we go to several different vantage points where we're glassing, and we literally had 30 minutes of shooting light left. We come back down off of one ridge. We're going through a river bottom up to hopefully another ridge to see if we can spot something. Joe spots, I think he caught movement of a little buck or something like that. Cause he's looking everywhere. Like the dude was like a glassing machine this last hour. I mean, he had his binos out going at it. And anyway, spotted up a few bucks, and the guide, looks in the group and finds a decent buck that he's like, well, let's go try to get an arrow in one of these. So Joe stays back at the side-by-side, and me and the guide, so the shrubs are maybe 2.5, 3 feet tall max. And so we are, hands and knees the whole time. We get up to this group of bucks, and it's probably 80 something yards, lights fading, and wind is howling, right? Which the wind didn't blow the whole time we're out there, but the wind's steady, blowing.
So just perfect.
I'm like,
just
great,
perfect
right?
scenario.
So, yeah. So, I'd take an 80-yard shot at tack, but with wind and low light, I was like, man, I don't know. We're looking at them. And as we're talking, they start moving further away, and now they're at 107 yards. Dang. So he's like, okay. So we got back down on the hands and knees. We're crawling, through cactus and everything else. We go down into a river bottom, come up. He sees the big buck and the little buck, but not the direction we thought they were going to go. They're on the other side of the river. So we crawl back through this mud trash stuff. We come up the river, and he's ahead of me a bit. And he ranges the little one, and I wasn't going to shoot the little one. I was just going to, eat the tag. Well, we get up a little bit ways, and we see another butt, and that's how you spot them, right? Is their big white, butt.
Yeah.
And the big buck the bigger buck was ahead of him, snuck into, I think it was 35 yards or something like that. And he was sitting there feeding, had his head down, hard quarter away shot. I looked at the opposite leg. I could barely see. Turned, I was shooting the UV slider, so I turned that light on, which, makes a world of difference. So their lighting system is amazing. Anyway, stuck him, and the rest is history. He went, handful of yards, tipped over, and, got that done. But it was crazy. I mean, we had in a period of a handful of hours, both tagged out last day, and it was kind of moral of the story is the hunt's not over until
it's over. Yeah.
Over. You're hunting from the moment you get out of the truck until shooting light's over.
I say that all the time to people. It's like the minute you're in the truck, you're on your way. You've started. So when you get out, you get out quiet, and as you're going to your stand, you might feel rushed because all you can think about is getting up there and getting settled. But you got to be careful because you're going to blow something out. Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. Was that your first time hunting in South Dakota?
I'd been there before for pronghorn.
Okay.
I didn't get anything that time, so I'd been out in that area once before, so I knew kind of terrain. I knew what we were in for, but I'd never hunted mule deer. And like I love hunting anything, but the mule deer thing for me is like I'm super fascinated with those critters, because I always thought, like, I've been elk hunting and seen mule deer, and they just seem dumb. Like I'm like, well, this is going to be easy.
Yeah.
And we got out there, and on a mature mule deer in that situation, particularly, like, they are significant. Their will to live and survive in that type of terrain, and you're in their world, gave me a completely new perspective and total respect for hunting mule deer. And I'm like fascinated, obsessed with those jokers. So
Yeah.
we're going to go back, in 25.
Nice.
Same place, and let's see if we can go a little bit bigger.
Do you remember the outfitter you were with?
Yeah, it's Craigo. I don't know if I'm saying that. Craigo. It
Okay.
was like near in Buffalo, South Dakota. Awesome outfit. Tons of it's private, so they have several different leases, and it's you don't run out of places to hunt there.
Yeah.
Super cool group of dudes, and yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, Joe was talking about how when he was waiting for his to stand up, and it was taking forever, and then it stood up and it moved, and then it laid back down again. Right?
Yeah.
Like, and then when he goes, well, yeah, and then he after he shoots it, he goes up to take a look at it, and he said it jumped back up. Start running.
Yeah, no, he put a real, like, it still like blows my mind that deer did that.
Yeah.
But I mean, because the first shot was a really good shot. Is a little low, but it was right in the money. But and I'd rather have a little low than a little high any day of the week, especially for trailing one. But yeah, that was a tough critter.
That's awesome. Any other plans for 25 other than going back there?
We'll go there, and then we for sure gonna hunt Joe's place in Ohio, which that was another pretty cool story this year. But yeah, we'll go to Ohio, or he'll already be there. I'll go to Ohio, and then Joe was just here last week. He hunted his first time in Alabama.
Yeah, I saw that. That's awesome.
A taste of our cracked out, skittish, cagey whitetails that we have. That's a hilarious story. You gotta hit him up and have him tell you his view of our whitetail down here. The does or something else.
So definitely different than his farm.
Oh yeah. Well, I've whitetail wise, I mean, I've hunted a lot of different states. I've hunted a lot of the Midwest, and I kind of have to like be careful how I say this, but I'll tell him, I'm like, dude, your deer are dumb. Like, these jokers are dumb. I can get away with a lot more than I can get away with down south. And he's like, I've heard that before.
You're not the first person to say that.
Yeah, it's just you Southerners. You guys down there, think that everything's so hard and all whatever else. They're different. They're definitely different. And he's, so we hunted Texas last year too. And he got a taste of Texas deer, which are, to me, a very cagey whitetail, kind of like what we have here. But yeah, there's I don't know, something in the water. these jokers eat that or drink that do something. Yeah, they're wild.
That's awesome. Wicked. Well, I think that's awesome. That's an awesome story. Thanks for jumping on here. Let everybody know how they can find you.
Yeah, so Instagram, I'm S.G Holmes, and YouTube, I'm S.G Holmes. So super duper easy.
Look at that, easy.
Yeah, I do most of the stuff on Instagram, but every now and then I like to get on the tube and put together some videos and stuff like that. Which I'm going to be like more, hopefully more disciplined with the YouTube stuff. I really enjoy that.
That's fun.
Yeah, so
it's a lot of work, but it's fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Steals a lot of your time, but it's a good time. So
for sure.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to have you back on again, maybe we can get both of you on. We can talk some other stuff together.
Oh, that would be a riot. We should do
Yeah.
that. All three of us. Let's do it.
That'd be awesome. All right.
Do it.
Thanks. We'll talk soon.
All right, man.